Caitlin Clark sat down, smiled, and said 6 words that shook an entire league. Not on the court, not after a loss. In the middle of her own injury recovery, when most players go quiet, Clark went loud. The WNBA was already cracking. Officials were under fire. The commissioner had just handed fans a match. And Clark? She'd been watching from the sidelines, building something no one saw coming. What looked like a casual interview comment was anything but casual. The timing, the platform, the wording, all of it was deliberate, and the league had no answer. Stay with us because what happened next changed the power structure of women's basketball forever. The fire was already burning. Before Caitlin Clark said a single word, the WNBA was already sitting in the middle of a mess. The 2024 season was supposed to be a celebration. Record-breaking ticket sales, new TV deals, fresh energy. The league had been growing steadily.
Here's Clark. Wow! You bet!
Washington Clark's arrival from Iowa, where she broke the all-time NCAA scoring record with 3,951 points, brought a whole new audience to women's basketball. People who had never watched a WNBA game in their lives were suddenly buying jerseys and filling arenas. Indiana Fever home games sold out. Road games sold out. Venues that had been half empty for years were suddenly turning people away at the door. But underneath all that excitement, something was quietly building. Wacky officiating had become a real problem. Not just a bad call here and there kind of problem, a pattern. Clips were going viral within minutes of games ending. Fans on Twitter and Reddit were breaking down plays frame by frame, showing contact that referees were ignoring. Hard fouls went uncalled. Obvious reaches got waved off. And every time it happened, the frustration in the stands got a little louder. Players were frustrated, coaches were frustrated, and the people running the league? They weren't exactly helping. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert made a statement that became one of the most criticized moments of her tenure.
The Engelbert, the first commissioner of the WNBA.
She said, in effect, that winning teams don't complain about officiating. It was a line meant to shut down the conversation, a way of saying, if you're losing, maybe look in the mirror. Instead, it poured fuel on a fire that was already growing. Fans saw it as dismissive. Players saw it as an insult. Now, if the commissioner had essentially told a frustrated locker room full of professional athletes that their concerns didn't matter, that didn't land well. Multiple stars had already been fined for speaking out publicly. Coaches were being penalized for saying things in press conferences that everyone in the building already knew were true. The league's message was clear: keep it internal, keep it quiet, and let us handle it. But the problem was that handling it wasn't producing results. The same questionable calls kept happening, the same patterns kept showing up, and fans with video evidence on their phones weren't going to stay quiet just because the league asked them to. This was the environment Caitlin Clark was watching from the bench. She wasn't playing. She was dealing with a shin injury that kept her out for stretches of the season.
Man, that left foot, that looks very painful. And she is snubbed from the court.
A frustrating, unpredictable situation where she couldn't plan, couldn't build rhythm, and couldn't even tell how she'd feel when she woke up the next morning. Most injured players go quiet during that time. They focus on recovery, stay out of controversy, and wait for their chance to get back on the court. Clark didn't go quiet. She went still, which is different. Still means you're watching, still means you're processing, still means you're building something. From the sideline, she had a view most active players don't get. She wasn't caught up in the flow of competition. She could see the full picture: who got the calls, who didn't, and exactly when the whistles disappeared. She was watching with the patience of someone who already knew what she was going to do with what she saw, and she was paying attention to every single detail. The question was never whether she would say something. The question was when and where. She didn't just talk, she aimed. Here's what most people missed when they heard Clark's comment. She didn't stumble into that moment. Think about it from her position. She's sidelined. No games to prepare for. No film sessions with coaches breaking down tomorrow's opponent. Just time more of it than any active player gets during a season. And instead of stepping back from basketball mentally, she stepped closer to it. People close to the Indiana Fever confirmed that Clark was spending her recovery time studying game film, not just her own plays, but watching how referees were making calls across completely different matchups. teams she wasn't on, games that had nothing to do with her stats or her season. She was building a picture. While every other player was locked into their own competition, Clark was sitting above it all, seeing the full board. Patterns that are invisible when you're in the middle of a game become obvious when you're watching from the outside with no pressure and no clock. She wasn't just recovering, she was researching. Then came the choice of platform, and this is where most of the commentary completely missed the point. She didn't drop her comment in a rushed post-practice media scrum, the kind where reporters ask the same 3 questions and players give the same careful non-answers. She didn't post it on social media, where a single sentence can be screenshot, stripped of context, and dismissed as frustration or ego. She chose Sue Bird's podcast, and that choice carried more strategy in it than most people wanted to give her credit for. Sue Bird is not just a Hall of Famer. She is one of the most respected figures in the entire history of basketball.
Powerful words there from one basketball Hall of Famer to another. Fans at Gamble Pavilion saw UConn legend Sue Bird become the 3rd player in program history.
4 Olympic gold medals, 4 WNBA championships, and a retirement that brought a standing ovation from players, coaches, and executives across the whole league. People who competed against her gave her a send-off that felt less like a goodbye and more like a tribute. That kind of reputation doesn't just happen. It's built over decades of showing up with integrity. Her podcast carries that same weight. When something is said in that space, it doesn't get treated like a hot take or a controversy grab. It gets treated as a serious conversation. Sports desks cover it. Entertainment media picks it up. It's writers who cover social issues in athletics reference it. It's one of the few platforms in women's sports where an athlete can say something difficult and have it received as thoughtful rather than inflammatory. By choosing that stage, Clark wasn't just speaking, she was lending her comment a legitimacy that a tweet or a press conference never could have provided. She was saying, "This is considered, this is real, Yamon, and I'm standing behind it in a space that respects the sport." The timing was just as deliberate. Her comment didn't land during a quiet week in the news cycle. It came when the officiating debate inside the WNBA was already at its loudest, when fans were actively looking for someone with enough credibility and enough platform to say the thing everyone was already thinking. She didn't create that moment. She walked into it at exactly the right second, with exactly the right words, and on exactly the right stage. So when she leaned in, completely calm, almost like she was making a throwaway observation, and said, "I wouldn't miss a call," there was nothing accidental about it. That was a person who had watched, waited, prepared, and chosen her moment with the same precision she brings to a pull-up 3 from the elbow. 6 words, quiet delivery, maximum impact. Every single one placed exactly where it needed to be. So now when 6 words hit like a storm. The clip hit social media, and within minutes it was everywhere. Not gradually, not slowly building over a few hours. Within minutes, the clip had been cut, captioned, and sent across timelines by thousands of people who had been waiting for exactly this kind of moment without even knowing it. Fans didn't just share it, they responded to it. The hashtag Clark was right started trending nationally, not just in basketball circles. It crossed into general sports Twitter, entertainment pages, and news feeds that never covered WNBA games. People were pulling up clips of questionable calls from games she wasn't even playing in, tagging her name, linking everything back to those 6 words. She became something the league had never really had to deal with before, a single player functioning as an unofficial accountability office for the entire sport. Every bad call suddenly had a reference point. Every no-whistle moment had a caption ready to go. She hadn't asked for that role, but the internet assigned it to her anyway.
Honestly, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around understanding that.
Behind the scenes, it was chaotic. According to sources familiar with the league's internal discussions, executives were divided almost immediately. The tension in those first 48 hours was real. On one side, you had people who wanted to move fast, reach out to Clark directly, remind her that publicly questioning officiating integrity crosses an unwritten line, and handle the situation the way the league had always handled uncomfortable truths, quietly, privately, away from cameras. The logic was simple: let it cool down. Don't give it more oxygen. The other side of that room understood exactly why that approach was dangerous. This wasn't any player. This was the person whose name was selling out arenas that had been half empty for years. This was the player whose games were drawing TV ratings the WNBA hadn't touched in over a decade, when sponsors had invested at new levels specifically because of her presence. Broadcast partners had built promotional campaigns around her availability. You don't publicly pressure or muzzle that player without turning her into a martyr. And in the social media era, a martyr with 3 million followers is a problem that doesn't go away after a press release. The referee union added another layer of tension nobody had fully anticipated. Some officials reportedly felt that Clark's comment was a direct, personal attack on their professionalism. Having it go viral, watching fans use it as a rallying point, watching her words get pinned to every questionable call for days afterward, turned them into a public target in a way that felt unfair to some of them. They hadn't asked to become the villains in this story, but even within their own ranks, the reaction wasn't uniform. There were quiet acknowledgments that the inconsistencies she was pointing to were real. His data from earlier in the season had already flagged irregular patterns in foul calls, patterns that coaches and analysts had been raising internally for months. A few officials reportedly admitted, privately, that Clark wasn't pulling this critique from thin air. She had receipts. She just hadn't shown all of them publicly. And then the league made the decision that would define how this whole chapter gets remembered. They said nothing. No press release, no clarification, no counter-narrative. No carefully worded statement about the league's commitment to officiating excellence. Just complete, total silence. And in the middle of a story that was growing louder by the hour, that silence became the most revealing statement of all. Every day, the league stayed quiet. Clark's version of events filled the vacuum. Sports talk shows ran the clip on repeat. Podcasts dedicated full episodes to breaking it down. Fans kept feeding the fire with new evidence, new clips, new examples. The story stopped being about one player's opinion and became a full national debate about whether the WNBA, at the peak of its biggest growth moment in years, was actually equipped to handle what it was becoming. There's a rule in communications that every crisis manager knows. If you don't define the story, someone else will. The WNBA let Clark define it, and she did. The money talked too. Here's where the story goes beyond basketball, and once you see this part clearly, the league's silence starts making a lot more sense. The WNBA's growth in 2024 was directly tied to Clark's presence in a way that was impossible to ignore.
You could tell the difference with the WNBA impact on the city ever since, Caitlin Clark.
Average attendance for Indiana Fever road games jumped significantly when she was in the lineup, some arenas reporting sellouts for the first time in years. Not modest increases, full buildings, venues that had been running at half capacity were suddenly turning people away. Must-TV viewership climbed to numbers the league hadn't seen in over a decade. Networks that had been quietly skeptical about investing in women's basketball were suddenly in very different conversations with league executives. Sponsors noticed all of it. Investment levels from corporate partners rose in ways specifically tied to Clark's visibility. Some brands that had never previously engaged with the WNBA at a meaningful level were now writing checks and showing up at games. And the language coming from their marketing teams kept referencing the same thing: the new audience she was bringing in, the younger demographic, the people who had discovered women's basketball through her and were now genuinely engaged fans. That kind of commercial leverage changes the power dynamic inside a league in ways that don't show up in any official rulebook. Rumors started surfacing from multiple directions: fan forums, insider circles, the business media outlets that don't normally cover basketball, that certain corporate sponsors had been quietly pressing league leadership for stronger player protection protocols. Not loudly, not publicly, but the conversations were apparently happening. Clark's name came up specifically and repeatedly. The reasoning behind it was straightforward and blunt. If she keeps getting hurt, if she keeps missing games, the numbers that everyone had been celebrating.
Magic happens when magic happens, and we've seen it a lot with Caitlin Clark.
Start going the other direction, fast. When one source reportedly connected to a broadcast partner described the situation in terms that had nothing to do with sports. Her availability on the court was described as a financial variable, not a basketball question, a business one. That framing matters, because it means the pressure on the league wasn't just coming from frustrated fans or vocal players, it was coming from the business partners whose money was funding the league's growth. And those conversations carry a different kind of weight in a boardroom than a trending hashtag does. Fan theories added another dimension to the pressure. A claim spread widely across Reddit threads and Twitter discussions, unproven officially, but persistent, that certain rival teams were using deliberate physicality against Clark beyond normal competitive play. Not just playing tough defense, but specifically targeting her in ways calculated to wear her down over the course of a game or force her into an injury situation. The logic behind the theory was cold and simple. Clark off the court weakens the fever, shifts the league spotlight, and removes the one player capable of single-handedly changing the commercial story of an entire season. Whether that theory is accurate or not almost doesn't matter at a certain point. When enough people believe something is happening, the perception creates its own pressure. Calls for rule changes around aggressive defensive strategies against marquee players started gaining real momentum, not just from fans, but from people adjacent to the league who understood the financial stakes. Then came the reports that made everything even more complicated. Multiple unconfirmed but consistent sources indicated that league officials had begun internal discussions about modifying officiating guidelines mid-season. That rarely happens. See, changing rules and protocols while a season is actively in progress sends a message that is very difficult to control. It signals that something was broken, that the people running things knew it, and that outside pressure forced their hand. The trap the league had built for itself was becoming clearer by the day. Make the changes, and it looks exactly like what it is, a quiet admission that Clark had been right from the start. Don't make the changes, and the business partners keep applying pressure while the public narrative keeps hardening against you. Two bad options, and the league had walked itself directly into that corner by staying silent when a clear, confident response might have changed everything. Bigger than one season. The moment Clark returned from injury, every camera was on her, not just because fans wanted to see her play again, not just because the Fever needed her back. And every camera was on her because everyone in that building, fans, media, players, coaches, and yes, the referees standing on that court knew exactly what had been said. Her comeback game wasn't a comeback in the traditional sense. It was a live referendum on everything that had happened over the previous weeks. Every drive to the basket carried extra weight. Every piece of contact drew a collective breath from the crowd. Every whistle and every silence where a whistle should have been was being clipped, time-stamped, and uploaded before the next possession even started. The scrutiny wasn't normal game scrutiny. It was pointed, deliberate. The entire basketball conversation had essentially deputized itself as a real-time quality control operation, and Clark was the measuring stick. When she took a hard hit without a call and gave that look the same calm, Haniri's slightly amused expression she'd worn sitting across from Sue Bird, the crowd didn't just react. They recognized it, like they were in on something, like she had already told them this would happen, and now here it was, happening exactly as described. She had done something very few athletes ever managed to do. She made herself the standard against which the league would now be judged. Before her comment, officiating complaints in the WNBA were background noise. A fine issued quietly. A press statement carefully worded to say nothing. Players understood the unwritten agreement. Keep grievances internal. Don't create headlines. Let the league manage its own image. That system had held for years because no single player had enough public leverage to break it without paying a steep price. Clark broke the agreement not with anger, not with a public meltdown, not with a lengthy statement drafted by a PR team. She did it with 6 calm words on a trusted platform. Out in the internet did the rest. What started as one player's observation became a movement that the league had no framework to contain. What comes next is the part that should concern WNBA leadership most. Younger players are watching this situation with close attention. The lesson Clark's move demonstrated travels fast in locker rooms, that a player with the right platform and the right numbers behind her can challenge institutional decisions publicly and have the fan base rally to her side. That's a new kind of power. It doesn't require a union vote. It doesn't require a formal grievance process. It requires reach, credibility, and timing. If that model takes hold, the WNBA could be entering a period where public confrontation becomes a standard tool rather than a last resort. Not just on officiating, on travel conditions, on marketing decisions, on salary structures, on how revenue from record-breaking seasons actually gets distributed among the players generating it. And this pattern isn't new to sports. NBA players built enough collective public pressure to force meaningful engagement on social justice initiatives. NFL players push safety reform conversations into actual rule changes through sustained public visibility. The United States women's soccer team fought a pay equity battle in public for years.
For Team USA, or at least the women's national team, they are preparing for the 2027.
And ultimately won structural changes that altered the sport. Every single time, the movement started with one voice that was loud enough and credible enough to be the first one through the wall. In the WNBA right now, that voice belongs to Caitlin Clark, whether the league is comfortable with that or not. The question that hasn't been answered yet is whether the people running the league will choose to fight that reality or find a way to work alongside it. Fighting Clark's influence publicly carries obvious risks. She brings too much revenue, too much new audience, and too much goodwill with exactly the demographic the league has been trying to reach for years. But publicly accommodating every challenge she makes sets a precedent with consequences that stretch far beyond her career. Either way, the sport is not what it was before those 6 words landed, and the people sitting in league offices know it, even if they haven't said so out loud yet. Caitlin Clark didn't start a fight. She exposed one that was already there. 6 words from a sideline rookie shook an entire professional league, split executives, rattled officials, and sparked a national conversation about who actually holds power in women's sports. She didn't need a press conference. She didn't need a lawyer. She needed the right moment, the right platform, and the right 6 words, and she had all 3. Whatever happens next in the WNBA, this moment will be part of the story. And the league can choose to evolve or get left behind by the players reshaping it. If you found this breakdown valuable, share it with someone who needs to see the bigger picture. The best stories in sports aren't always on the scoreboard.